Good evening.
Hello. I was wondering if this is Alaska Wildflower Honey.
Yes, it is.
Hi. I had called about a week ago, just about possibly doing an interview with you guys. I'm a student with Oregon State University.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions I would love to ask you. Would you have a little bit of time set aside?
Sure do. Go ahead.
All right, cool. All right, so first off, what is your name and what role do you play in Alaska Wildflower Honey?
Okay, my name is Steve Victors. I am the owner. I say when you wind up with the owner, it means that you get the guy that does everything.
It actually brings me to my next question. What first inspired you to work with bees, and what were some of the major startup costs for your company?
The major reason we started working with bees is we had a large wildfire in 1996, which burned up the acreage, and we planted trees and aided the land in recovering. We found that we had not enough pollinators to take care of the underbrush. So we started off with 2 colonies of honeybees.
Cool. So you're also using them for pollination for the wildlife as well.
We were at that time, but pollination is not a huge piece of Alaskan beekeeping.
Yeah, I would definitely assume so with the way that the seasons are up here.
Yes, and so most of what we wind up harvesting up here are leaf and root crops.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I noticed that you guys prefer to have your bees kept in an area that is a lot less urban. Would you care to explain the reasons behind that?
Well, I think that the reason behind that is because you have the ability to get a honey that is a little bit more pure and a little bit more natural. You avoid all of the pesticide loads and the agricultural influence.
And I did actually notice as well that you guys really do stress chemical-free. And I was wondering, what alternative pesticides are you guys using?
Alternative pesticides that we're using,
Mm-hmm.
we don't use pesticides.
Well, how would you deal? Oh, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Alternative pesticides would be incorrect because
So, instead of using something like a pesticide, what would you do to control something like the varroa mite, for instance?
Okay. By and large, what we deal with varroa control are things of drone frame trapping of mice. We wind up using brood cycle breaks and those kinds of things.
Would you care to go into detail about the brood cycle breaks and what exactly that entails?
As you know, the varroa mite lives primarily inside the brood nest of the honeybee. It has 2 different stages. One stage is the actual breeding stage, and the other one is the phoretic stage where they're traveling freely upon the bees. Okay. Most of the life cycle of or most of the important part of the life cycle of the varroa mite is actually underneath the capped-over brood. To eliminate that reservoir of mites periodically in capped-over brood, you can stop the population explosion, so to speak, from really taking hold.
Ah, I see. Okay.
It's the same method that the Africanized hybrid bees use to control their mites in a natural setting.
Oh, very cool. I did not realize that. That's awesome. And I was also wondering, over the years, have your colonies experienced any extreme losses? And what did you do to deal with those losses?
As far as losses go, yeah, we wind up with losses.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to winter bees through this far north.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we wind up with losses every year, and to offset those losses, we import packages of bees from California.
Or what are some of the other challenges you would face up here in Alaska besides, losing a good amount of bees over the winter? Is there anything else?
I don't know that there are any other unusual challenges that we face that are not faced throughout the industry as a whole.
Let's see. So I did notice that you guys also offer other services besides making honey at Alaska Wildflower Honey. And I was wondering if you'd like to explain some of those and go into a little bit of detail.
Well, that has become our primary focus is honey production. We wind up spending more time with support of other beekeepers, offering classes, importing supplies, importing packages of bees. We're the largest suppliers of packages of bees inside Alaska.
And I did notice, too, that people could actually take their honey and have it processed at your facility.
Oh, of course. Yes, we do offer that. I mean, we offer all kinds of services to support beekeepers, whatever kind of a thing that they would need to have or done. We do winter colonies for folks, and we extract honey for them. So there's a whole wide range of services that we offer. We have people that keep their hives further out than we do. I've got one beekeeper that flies in with a float plane and picks up his colonies when the ice goes out of his lake, and we package the bees here, tend them until they're ready, and then we meet him out at the float plane dock at Big Lake and load up his plane with honeybees, and he takes them on out to where he keeps his.
That's awesome. It's really nice that you're willing to help out people like that. Back on the subject of processing honey, what kind of equipment would you need to do something like that?
Equipment that we use, we have. There's a variety of pieces of equipment that we have evolved through. At this point in our business, we have a Cowan Silver Queen uncapper, which is an automated set of hot knives, basically vibrating hot knives. Combs slip down between the frames or between the knives, and it uncaps them, loads it out onto a tray, and then we move from that phase into the extractor. We have two extractors that we ran last year. One was a 20-frame Fritz extractor.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was a 50-frame extractor from Man Lake. Both of them are radial extractors. So we use the larger Fritz or the larger Man Lake for our commercial orders, and then use the smaller Fritz for people that have 1 and 2 hives and that kind of thing.
Oh, I see. Very cool. Very cool. So, also on a different subject, what do you think about the growing epidemic, basically, the loss of bees that's gradually been increasing over the years? And what do you think needs to be done to at least help, get us back on track or rectify the situation?
Well, bees are facing tougher and tougher challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the majority of those challenges can all be traced back to the varroa mite. If you
Mm-hmm.
can control the varroa mite, you can pretty well control most of the other challenges that beekeepers face. So, it's as you're probably pretty well familiar with the varroa mite. The varroa mite is a parasite that vectors in all kinds of diseases to the honeybees. It acts as a stressor to the honeybee,
Mm-hmm.
and so whatever other environmental stressors are magnified simply because it has the additional stressor of the varroa mite. So in the long run, what we need to do is we need to concentrate on that number one pest to beekeepers, which is the varroa mite. I think there's a fair bit of good work that's being done with that. A number of beekeepers are working in on it. One beekeeper that I particularly admire his work on it is Randy Oliver down there in Grass Valley in California.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Well, because he has a scientific approach to his methodology, commercial beekeeper, as well as having a degree in biology, and so he has a lot of scientific process put into the mite control issues, and realizes that is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face. As far as somebody is working on the mite issue and the hobby market, the sideliner market, I think it's got some good stuff going.
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic. I was wondering if you thought, well, there's been a lot of research done into the newly budding marijuana market, and they've discovered terpenes recently, which are an aromatic molecule. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are in all plants. They're basically what gives the plant its smell and flavor. And a lot of plants, they'll produce these terpenes to either attract or ward off insects. And I was wondering if you thought it might be viable to use something such as terpenes to maybe spray on the hive to discourage varroa mites from infesting it.
Well, I don't think that would really play a huge part. The varroa is carried to the hive by the honeybees, and so it would be different if you were talking about something like a small hive beetle that smells the hive and flies to it. The varroa mite is one of those things that is intricately tied to the hive and to the honeybee itself, and it is not necessarily, the varroa mite doesn't really have any choice as to which hive it goes into.
I see. All right. So, well, I do have one last question for you, and I thank you for your time, of course. My last question would just be, what is one piece of advice that you could give someone who is just starting out, based off of your personal experience?
Just starting out, read. Read and study.
All right. Definitely a great piece of advice. You can never stop learning.
And don't everything on the internet. That would be the second part of it. And don't believe everything you see on YouTube on the internet.
I would definitely agree with that point. There's a lot of false information out there nowadays.
There he is. But read with a scientific mind, and it'll help.
I definitely agree. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, no problem.
And